His work with me, believe
I'd like to call to order the IT committee meeting for the month of May. Start out with, well, you want to do accept the minutes from April 23rd? We got motions all over the floor and seconds all over the floor. We'll go with Cassie and Jay. If she hits, if you get her riled up.
She's never sat right in before. He's on the safe side.
Lance, you sit there at your own risk.
I could dive under this table in about half a second.
That's too small.
Project report?
Okay, project reports, our report has been updated. We did complete the UPS over at the jail, so that one's coming off the project list. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the other items that are on there. There's no new ones this month, so they're a continuation. A couple that are gonna fall off here shortly. By next month. Okay.
If no one has any questions,
Moving them forward.
moving on.
The next report is the ticketing report. Ticketing report is for the month of April. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that report.
Are these decreasing in any of the permits?
Are they what?
Decreasing in all the permits?
No, they flow, so sometimes they're more, sometimes they're less. It just depends what we have going on, what we're working on for that month, or if they have any issues or for replacing computers or other things like that can contribute to the ebbs and flows.
Now, when you, like the sheriff, you got 115
Mhm.
hours, and is that basically general maintenance?
It's, well, it
When
can
you're
be any number
upgrading,
of things.
if you're upgrading, to me, that's maintenance.
Yeah, well, then, yeah, so it could be problems, it could be upgrades, like new cars, new computers. It could be programming changes. For example, one of the projects we have going on is the new civil software, that's for the sheriff's office. So that time will be tagged to the sheriff's office.
And that is
We're
an
doing-
upgrade.
Yes, yeah, it's a
So-
replacement for the existing.
This is just me, and I don't know about the rest of the committee. All I'm interested in not is, I don't need to be concerned about whether or not you have enough work to do with your team.
Mhm.
I'm more interested in problems. And see, so administration, 19 hours, was there problems there or just upgrades and regular maintenance? You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
so
I
there's
don't
no
know.
real way to separate out problems per se than maintenance, because maintenance can be a problem, and that's why we do the maintenance. Replace a computer, those type of things. For administration, some of that work might have been related to the database that we support for them for fixed assets or for the county.
Maintenance, right?
Well, it might be, or maybe it was a new request, I don't know
But even
specifically.
a
I'd
new
have to look, but-
even a new request, wouldn't that be maintenance? Cause you're upgrading, you're improving. But as far as, let's say my system went down, to me, that's a problem. You gotta fix it.
But that's,
You know what I'm
but
saying?
that's administration.
Huh?
There's an administration portion that goes with that. It just doesn't happen. Somebody supervises it, somebody. does
Well, I
paperwork,
understand,
Somebody,
I understand that, but see, this almost looks like we got a lot of problems. When in reality, we don't. That's all I'm trying to lead up. You're just doing your job, what needs to be done here.
Yeah,
And I don't know, maybe I'm wording it wrong. I wish it was some way, if we can have faulty equipment somewhere that there's no way I would know that by looking at.
right, well, I think it all kind of goes together into supporting the county equipment. Some of it are changes, some are problems. I'd say the problems are less than, we try to be proactive. That's one of our big initiatives in the IT department is get to a problem before it becomes a problem, right? Yeah,
Right.
old equipment replaced and those type of things. So
But see,
it's
that all,
really, yeah,
excuse me, that all is planning. In other words, you prevented a problem when you upgraded it. You prevented a problem when you saw an issue and you corrected it. And it was planned and then we didn't lose really any service because you had it all planned out. So I don't know if I'm not looking for anything. I'm just trying to say that this isn't all problems. This is just your workload.
Yeah, this is all the things we have going on, and I'd like to present the report just because to kind of provide value. You guys see the projects, right? It doesn't really give a true picture of what we do within the IT department. So I thought this type of a report that would break it out a little bit would give you an idea of what we really do
Mhm.
on a daily basis with all the employees and everything that we have. You know, kind of where our time is allocated for the month. I could add months, so you could see like a rolling 3 months or something like that, so you had some comparison. I don't have a good way to break out like this was a problem and this wasn't, because I don't know how I would define
Yeah, I know.
necessarily a problem. That would, yeah, I'm not sure how I would do that.
And I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm just saying, I'm voicing my thoughts.
Sure.
That you're doing a great job, I guess, and I don't think it sounded like I said that.
No, I appreciate that.
So, oh, Jim, I'm sorry.
So a problem might be someone has a computer virus
Mhm.
and so that would be a problem.
That would be, an incident, cybersecurity incident, yeah.
So does something like that happen very often?
No,
Or-
not often,
So we have.
because we
really
have
good
good,
secure system.
we have, doesn't
Okay.
mean it never happens, but
So maybe
very
that
rare.
helps.
Yeah,
Dan, to know that.
yeah. I just don't know how you could change this report to reflect anything different, but
Yeah, because sometimes the problem would be like somebody forgot their password, they got locked out, well, they can't work till we reset their password, that's a problem. And that would be put in here, but it's not a problem, it's something we fix, often.
if I used the
Lockouts,
county
yeah.
emails, you'd have a lot of problems.
I don't know about that. We have ways to make it easy for you.
Sue?
Dan, I'm wondering if the trigger for you is the word ticket.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe, I was thinking one more column after this and if any of these was an emergency or whatever, you would just make a little note there that major problem corrected, and so most of them would be blank, because most of them are repairs or planned, work, but
Well, it is a help desk, so, there
Right,
are
I know.
problems every single day, someone will come in and, maybe they forgot their password, like I said, that's a very common one. Maybe their computers got hit when the cleaners came through last night and jiggled the cord and they can't get on the internet, or, the computer won't power on, or the monitor, is acting up and we have to go out and take a look.
yeah,
Yeah, sometimes they have to reboot their computer to get it going again. Be a lot of different items.
Maybe Mr. Shaw, it's proactive versus reactive. Proactives are the things that she's planned and reactives are the incidents that she's responding to.
yeah, that would be, I don't know, if maybe I don't even know how interested I am in all this. It's such a short meeting, I'm trying to get through 15 minutes here. 15 minutes is all I ask for you today. John, do you have a question?
Is the ticket report involved at all with the first report?
Yeah, the projects, yes. Yeah, so,
Interactive with each other.
yeah, so what the ticketing is it tracks the time of all the employees in the IT department. So that way we can see who's doing what, how much time they're putting in, and then break it out so that we can back bill for that support for the departments as we go forward. It allows me statistics and metrics to be able to manage my staff as well.
So I just want to tell Matt, all I got out of this conversation, Matt, was that it was your guys that jiggled the wires that caused all these problems.
At least they were there jiggling.
Getting rid of the dust.
Any other questions on the ticketing report?
Feeling safer back here all the time.
Yeah, I know.
But I could tell that there was you.
He said absolutely not. No question.
Would you like to move on to the next?
So, cybersecurity report, is same report, well, obviously the new month, but same report as the previous month. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. And for all the reports, if you folks want to see anything different, I definitely am happy to adjust as much as I can or add additional content if there's something you'd like to take a look at.
I don't think anybody does.
Okay.
You do a good job with the information you give us. They don't have any.
Okay, moving on, this is something I asked Terry to do for it, and if you find it not interesting, then just let me know, and I just thought that it would be of interest for everyone. And so do you want to explain what you've done and
Sure. So this report is data from YouTube. The request was to take a look at how many people are watching, you know, the videos that we're doing, such as the video for this committee. I didn't have an easy way to break it out by meeting because everyone is posted with a slightly different name. Sometimes, you know, and so they're, because of the names, it would be a manual process to split it all out. So I thought I'd start with a yearly overview so we could see, you know, as long as we've been doing YouTube, take a look at how many total views, and I did break it down by quarter. So you have a yearly total and then a quarterly total, just to give everybody an idea. I think there's a pretty clear trend that it's going up as we continue to go through and as we've added on and been able to stream better, I think, for the board meeting and those type of things. So if you'd like to see some additional data on that, I can certainly, you know, break it down further for you, or if you have other questions from the raw data set. But as you can see, starting in 2020 and going up through Q2, which we're currently in for 2024, those are total views on all the meetings. So board meetings, committee meetings from YouTube where we're streaming them out.
just so I understand it, this is all the committee meetings that we have plus the board meeting?
Mhm.
Okay. So how many committee meetings are there a month? Is there 6, 7?
You do my watches when you say.
How many?
At least 8, you've got 3 today, 1 on audit, we've got
Audit's
2
not
on the
streamed.
Thursday.
On-
It's not streamed, but a bummer. And then the 2 public safety, DPW and health and home human services. I think there's 11 committees assignments. Looks like 8, 10, 11. We only have so many days. Well,
And then the board meeting on top of that.
Yep.
Is planning street?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
Are they, what, is this a live watch or is this recorded?
So there's no way to differentiate the two. They're just watching on YouTube. So some might be live and some might be watched after.
I think a lot of our
But-
employees watch us.
They might, yeah.
I don't think they say it.
You do.
They do.
I know I do personally. It's saved me a lot of time after the change in COVID, because I used to come sit in the meetings, you know, and I couldn't be productive while I was sitting in the meetings. And so now I'm able to actually put it up on YouTube so I can hear like the finance meeting and stuff. You know, the ones that I think are important and still work. And then if I have to get up, I can pause it and walk away. So it's been great from a department head perspective.
Did you say if you watch it live, it's YouTube?
What's that?
Did you say if they watch it live, they're watching it on YouTube?
Yes, they can. Well, if they go through YouTube to watch it, yeah. You can watch it while it's happening.
and if you watch it afterward, but is that still on YouTube? And Deb, is there any other streaming in the within internally? There is, I didn't know.
I don't know.
So anybody
No, we
that,
have the Zoom meeting, but nobody gets invited to the Zoom meeting other than who is attending the meeting.
okay, so there's this. The only way that it would become a Zoom meeting if there was a committee member that wanted to, but was out of town, you could sign up for that.
Yep, so we do it through Zoom. That's how we get it out there. And then from Zoom, it live streams out to YouTube. And YouTube is where people can view it. That's the only place they can see it.
Okay,
Can I ask my question?
I assumed you would, I thought I was asking an ignorant question, but obviously you had that question, all of a sudden I feel like.
Yeah, I thought people were watching. Zoom.
Yeah, I don't even know how it works.
Oh, gotcha, okay. Yep. Yeah, no, the Zoom is closed up from a security standpoint.
Okay. Do you find this interesting at all? I mean, My 15 minutes are up and I think we're about all done here, but I wanted to see how everybody felt. Is it something that you think worthwhile to look at once in a while?
Once in a while, yeah.
Now, how come it's so low second quarter? We not completed the second quarter?
Well, no, we're still, it just started. First quarter ended at the end of March, so we're just in second quarter right now.
Okay, so that's what I.
So we still have the rest of May and June.
Yeah.
And I do have a couple other things too,
Oh,
so I can
great.
extend past them.
Let's get right on to it.
So one additional thing that I have is we received a refund check on some AV equipment we had purchased. So I'd like to request that we recognize, the money into my 2020 account. It's a little over 10,000. I apologize. I should have had the total with me, but I can get that for you. Al has it, I know. Right for
Move
the,
the finance.
Second.
Second.
Didn't we just do that Friday?
oh, we did?
Didn't we just do that Friday? I think we took care of that already, didn't
Look at that order.
Oh, maybe we did and I just didn't bring it. I thought I had to bring it to you first.
we? Maybe not.
I don't think so.
I would-
Maybe it's just,
Maybe we should do it.
maybe I've done with you so much, I think it'd be done.
Yeah.
Never mind, move it to finance, just in case.
Yeah. Move it just in case. We'll double check that.
We did.
So what do we need? A motion?
We got a
Motion
motion,
to move it, budget
second on the
limit
floor.
finance.
Who made the motion?
The room.
Okay, Jay's hiding down there, but I think he's second.
Cassie and I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And then the only other thing I had, I just wanted to share with the board that we had the IT Directors Conference last week down in Saratoga, and we had some really great presentations down there from the Department of Homeland Security among others, but cybersecurity, of course, being the hot topic, as usual. And it was very interesting, very good conference, made a lot of contacts. I just wanted to share. But it was great.
Does that complete your report?
That completes it. Did we get 15 minutes?
We got a little over 15. Does anyone have any other questions before I adjourn? Adjourn.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Terry.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Are you driving with nothing to do or after you?
Government acts ordered. Was there a motion to accept the minutes from April 23rd? Mr. Nolan.
Second.
Mr. Wang, second. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? All right, Board of Elections.
Good go, Jeff. I'm here. How's everybody today?
Good.
Good.
Just want to just bring you up to date about the election on 25th of June. It's gonna be a small one. We only have, it's a Democrat primary, but it's only for the 107th Assembly District. So it's only gonna consist of 3 towns, Cambridge, Easton, and White Creek. So because of that, our early voting, we usually have it at our building. But because we're not in the 107th, we have to move it. It's gonna be at Germain Hall in White Creek. So we have to have 9 days of early voting in Germain Hall. So,
You really moved it down.
It's gonna be any day, Jack.
yeah, so, well, we'll still, our inspectors will be working there. We'll still be at our office. Monitoring.
We'll get you through customs pretty quick.
Yeah, so, but so it's only gonna, like I said, consist of those 3 towns. So it's gonna be a long day, I'm sure. still be 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. the polls open. And we still have to have, the weekends, like, it's what, 9 to 5. And, Monday, Wednesday, it'll be noon to 8 p.m. for early voting. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 to 5. So it's still all the normal, voting hours. It's updated, it's on our website. We'll be putting it out in the paper. It's gonna be as normal, other than just switching the poll sites.
Are you gonna provide maps to the town on how people find their way there over in Lake Fish?
Yeah, well, we're gonna, like I said, it'll be in the paper, it's on our website. We'll be putting, we'll be sending, letters out to all the voters, letting them know about the change, for the early voting site.
How much did that cost? Send out a letter.
Well, it'll just be to the towns for those, so.
I know it's more than 2 or 3 though.
Right. Post, I think we'll be at 1,400 towns.
It's unlimited in one party and two towns.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, I just have another subject.
Is there any questions on that subject?
I just wanted to mention while Jeff is still here, there's legislation that is supposed to or expected to pass through the Senate today. And that is to increase the number of full-time employees in the election department by 2. That'll be 2 more full-time employees that were mandated to hire at a cost of over $100,000 for the 2 employees.
They come with funding, right?
No.
You would think, right?
Just
Because they're mandated, but, so it is expected to pass today.
Inside dialogue.
And there's a ratio of that, it's for 40,000 registered voters, you have to add additional 40, you have to hire 2 more.
But we're nowhere near.
Right, for every 20,000 above the 40, you have to
Right,
hire, yeah, but it'll be 2 more people in your office. More info to follow, I'm sure.
Jeff, just a curiosity question, today's school board elections, these machines they use, do they get them from you?
No, we're not doing any.
You're not doing that?
No. Because the problem is when they changed, before it was all right when we had the primary in September, but now when they changed it, and we're this close to when it's in June, it's too close with the 45-day with the federal, and we had to change the ballots going out for military. 45-day, and we're trying to build the ballot and do everything, get ready for the June primary. It's just too much to try to do school elections on top of everything running into us, so we kind of got to wait.
Okay.
But well, right now, just the 4 of us at this point.
When do you have to hire these people by when?
Soon, once it passes, it's got to go to the governors, and then once it's signed from the governor, then it's. So
I don't know what the date
Yeah.
that they're gonna.
there's
do
no
this.
date set. I mean, still would have to, once it gets passed, it's still got to go to the governor, and then she's, how long it sits on her desk. And she'll
I mean, would it
By the
be
time.
this year's budget?
I would think so.
possibly could happen.
Yeah, I was thinking we could stretch it.
And the number, that 100,000 that I came up with, that's at a clerk rate of pay. I don't know if that's actually what the position would be. That would be working with personnel and
Yeah.
civil service and getting it,
So,
probably a clerk,
I
so,
believe
yeah,
so.
just
It's
over
not gonna-
100,000.
I don't think it's, I think that's what, when I was talking to Danielle, I'm not sure, I think Warren County already got theirs, and I think that's.
Yeah, they actually created positions before the mandate when the
Right.
bill passed,
Yeah.
right?
I can check with that, but I think that's what.
So one other piece of legislation is going through, is working its way through. Right now, on election day, we pay our inspectors about $240 for the day. And the state wants to make a minimum of 300.
that might go up.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's significant.
There's 2 more employees needed as far as that goes.
Well,
There's 2 more clerks.
yeah, it'd be 2 more, that'd be
Yeah.
bipartisan, one Dem, one Republican.
We can use
Yeah, when it gets around election time, we usually have to bring a couple inspectors in to help out anyway, when it gets, so.
Well, we're talking 52 weeks a year.
Right,
Election
well-
time takes up so many, but is there enough?
Well, we'll have stuff for them to do.
We'll find some.
It'll be busy, but it doesn't, it's gonna be mandated, we're gonna
We
have
don't
to
have
do
a
it.
choice.
Yeah, so we have no choice.
I guess that's the problem, I guess I have with it, because usually we create positions based on need. We're being told we need to create 2 positions if this bill passes,
Right.
whether we need them or not. I'm not saying there's not times that you're busy, but do we
Right.
need somebody year round? It doesn't really matter if we do or not.
Well, we can, like you said, we always have stuff going on. It's every year they keep adding more stuff that we have to do, so. It'll be funny to do, especially with these, the machines is a lot different than years ago. There's more testing, there's always something to do with these machines and everything.
With that, with 2 more, staffed out there, can you now take on the schools to do the voting machine setup?
It might be
That would
possible,
generate
we're not
revenue,
sure,
wouldn't it?
and that might be a possibility.
See, that would help offset maybe some of the costs.
Well, we don't, well, yes, we do, I guess, that's right, we did charge the schools.
The school is really a time conflict, because right when the school gets their stuff together, which is the last thing.
Yeah, that's the only problem, it runs right in our
That's
time,
right when we're doing. stuff
we're
together.
building the ballot.
Right.
We only have the one system, you'd have to go out and buy another whole new system, ballot building system, and everything else to do this.
What if there's no primary here?
Yeah, then you're jumping back and forth, one year you're telling them you're gonna do it, and the next year you're telling them no.
Okay.
But we really don't know that till the first week of November.
But you still have the assembling of all of the ballots, all of the petitions and those things that come at the same time frame. I think it's
Yes.
really, the bigger question is their primary, because the primary will come later down the road. But it's a matter of getting all that stuff organized by the time, because it's the equal time frame towards the end that they have to have the petitions in.
Yeah.
Have to have all do all that
That's
stuff.
a lot of things.
And God knows you've already had one problem down with petitions a year ago, and we won't get them, so.
Another change is coming, it doesn't affect all of you, but changing soil sites in Granville. And we're getting out of the Strand and going into the village courtroom. Because
In Hustle Falls,
for next fall.
change those 2 poll sites.
And we're looking at 2 others, we're trying to get Jackson down to the American Legion. We're trying to get White Creek up to the rescue. Squad.
Any other?
Yeah, I did have one other thing, when we went to Hart on demand, we did have 3 of those Oki printers that we can't use anymore. So we went to Hart, we used the Brother printers with their system. So we let Warren County, they borrowed the 3 Oki printers, which they're no good to us anymore. So they're using those right now. And we talked to IT, and they're no use to us anymore. So we'd like to give Warren County those 3 Oki printers that they're using. So we just wanted to let them have them. We bought them with grant money, so we can't sell them. They're no use to us. So we just want to let them have them. We'll keep the documentation. We talked to the state. We can just give them to them and we'll keep the documentation that we transferred them to Warren County, and IT is fine with it. They're no use to us anyways.
I'll move it, Chairman.
Motion, is there a second? A second from Mr. Nolan. Deb, does this have to go to the board, or is this just this committee decide? I just,
I don't know if it's an asset, but
I
not really.
guess, I wasn't sure with the motion where it should go, whether we're doing it here.
Well, don't you have
We
to
already
declare
talked to the
surplus
state.
first?
Thanks.
I think so.
So you're declaring it surplus?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to declare those surplus. Any more discussion?
And you said you cleared it with your state agency, that's okay.
Yeah. Same with like our machines now, the old Dominion machines. We just keep documentation that we got all the, all the numbers that were just don't use anymore.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, anything?
So it's okay. I can let them know.
One more question for board elections? Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day. You're here to tell us what day the open house is.
Yeah. I have to laugh because as much as IT and buildings and ground are similar worlds for service, this and that, like how IT analyzes data versus buildings and grounds is so far apart. I have a good friend that's an IT successful guy. We coach together. And all I can laugh, I sit over there laughing, he'll say, hey, we saw this many pitches, this many were strikes, this many were balls in the last 2 weeks, and we had this. I said, we lost 3 games, and this guy has not hit the ball in 2 weeks. We need to change something, you know, but he's gonna tell me like, 13 curveballs were thrown and everything else, like, it's just a spitting image of like how people, in their profession do it. So,
So you're like Dan is, we were in like.
well, we lost, we have to change something, we gotta do better. Yep, so it's just kind of fun. Parks are starting up this weekend. Both of them are open the weekends until the end of June, when they go full time. We are working now, Hewlett's is fully staffed. Lauderdale, we're getting there. I think, Alternative 17 just as of this morning, finally got their approval to schedule another class for training. So we got a few more young people that are gonna train. So we're getting them hired, to be able to train, so. Otherwise, I think the parks are looking good. We have some, obviously last minute stuff that's going on this week to have them up and ready and everything up to code to the Department of Health.
Is the gates open during the week when the beach is open? Or the gates closed?
The gates don't close until the park's open full time. So if the park's open that way, that's the way it is. If the park's open that day and the beach is open, the gates close at night. But if it's not open, the gates stay open 24/7. And at Lauderdale, it's different. That's only Hewlett's. And look at me and you tell me the reasoning. It's not my reasoning. That was voted on by the full board, and that's how the hours run, and we've always kept it the same.
Does that mean you have to close the gates the first night before you open, so you have a gate to open in the morning?
Well, I don't think so, but I don't think so. It'd probably be open, but then when they leave Saturday, they'll close it. They open Sunday, they'll open it, so. And then when they leave for the week, they leave it open.
Getting back to the gates, did you move the gate?
No, not yet.
This was done at Lauderdale, right?
Yep, we haven't moved it yet. As is for one, I mean, we haven't had the time to do the project. I think we did kind of get a scope of work together to do it. I've met with, both the Parks and Recreation, the head of them, and the, I think there was a buildings guy and an engineer. I met with them last week to go over the buildings. As you know, the contract's up this year. So kind of hanging on. We're trying to work out a deal where we can fix the road up and provide some sort of building for our staff to work out of. Basically, I told them if they want to rehab the cabin, which I think the cabin's lovely, they gotta do that. Like, for me, it's not, and they understood that, like, it's not financially, for me to try to rehab a cabin that's in that kind of shape, I would just take it down and put a new one up. So there's a few ideas floating around. I don't have any, kind of negotiating the contract now, which runs up in November. I brought up the gate moving in, we'll see how that works too. So we're not doing it right.
Now, they is the state, right?
They as in the state. So it's kind of a tricky thing because yes, the state owns it, it does, but the state doesn't recognize it as one of their parks. Because they don't operate the park. So to get funding for that park is harder than if it was just a state park. But we're working on, that's all I have really for the parks right now. Guys are up there working away at it.
questions about the park before I move on to Peters? All right, so we're gonna start with, update on Middle Falls DPW barn. The 30th is going out to bid. I'll be walking through with, prospective bidders, the 11th of June. Bids will be due June 27th, which will give me about, give or take, a week for review. And then we get finance committee on July 11th. And, hopefully award a bid on the 19th of July. That would be for fall construction. So that's where we're at right now.
Is this general contractor?
It'll be 5, the same thing with Slauson, you'll have 5 general site, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, and they'll all be separate bids. So you'll award 5 separate bids, like we did for it. Yes, we got good water. I brought that up last month. We were having the well drilled. We have good water. We have to get some testing done just to make sure, for if there's any water treatment needs to be done, but
How deep was it again?
300.
That wasn't bad.
With 200 feet of casing. But there's 12 plus gallons a minute down there, so that's a pretty good well.
Are we gonna be able to build without demolishing anything on the existing one? I know we're turning it,
No, we're gonna demolish everything.
so we're gonna have to have.
So we're working with DPW to, find other locations to put trucks and people, while it's getting construction's going. Something where they can still go do their beat in this area. I think we work with the town of Greenwich a little bit. I don't know the results of that talk yet, but I do know DPW was working on it myself as well.
I'm not sure if it's gonna extend over to where the new buildings are gonna be, but on our side of the bridge, Greenwich side, all of the houses along there and the false fire departments, and they all have water treatment.
Yeah.
And it's needed desperately.
Needed, yeah. I think there's sulfur there,
Yeah.
and Dan had asked me about that. I do think the report, did mention that there was sulfur, how much, we'll see. The good news is it's a lot of water, so there, that was the best news you could get. Alright, so, Fort Ann update, we broke ground, they were working yesterday bulldozing, surveying, putting silt fences up. Basically going through all the submittals now, every day we get these are, the materials are using for this, we have to give it an okay, so just a lot of back and forth. One thing that did come up was I met with National Grid yesterday morning. And for the entrance property, they want to put a post next door at the distillery. In that lawn, to come across something they need to put a new pole there. So I'm gonna have to go through an easement, hopefully, I haven't talked to them yet, because I just found this out yesterday, but I'm gonna have to reach out to them and really get an easement to put a pole over there for National Grid.
Did they say no, or do they have?
Yeah, they can say no. And then I kind of asked the planner that was there, I'm like, so what's plan B if they say no? And he needs to go, we'll have to deal with that when it comes. I'll probably talk to Sam. I just haven't seen him. I was just there yesterday, so I'll talk to him and.
There's not a lot of room on the front of that property, on their side, the distillery themselves, to have a.
Right,
When it pulls
so
stuff.
there's a house and then there's their lawn, there's a lawn there. It's more the guide wire that would be holding it up
Yeah.
is the problem. So we'll see,
No, the Fort Ann barn doesn't need to be demolished to build.
No.
So
Those ones we're planning on building, and that's the last step of the project. They move out of those barns into the new one, and then that phase of the project happens.
Good.
Now, how much, when you say when they call and they're okay, how much interaction during the day do you have to have with are you a lot, and are they able to make contact so decisions can?
Yep, so the guy that we hired from Labella to do that, he's good, he's on it every day. most of it's him reporting to me. But he does, there is things like the salt structure, they wanna change, supplier because this supplier can't get it in time for this or blah, blah, blah. So it changes the basic design. So he doesn't just approve that himself. They'll call me and say, and send me the information. What do you think about this? And usually I'll take that over to DPW guy. Hey, you guys have any problem with this versus this? And, what I ask is, does it cost more? If that's the answer, it's no, and then is it, the salt, like, what do we want? Put steel on there, we're not asking to change something that could hurt us down the road.
You have to sign everything.
There's a submittal exchange, software. And I just kind of give the okay. The architect actually has to sign it because if it's a basis change, it's their stamp that they're on. So they actually have to sign it, but they don't, everything goes through. There's a spot where I check yes, when it comes to that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't have to get in the truck to go see. I mean, right now, the submittals are coming in, everything from plumbing to heating, they said Taco pumps, this model, we'd like to use Grundfos pumps, this model, Fine with that, fine with that, whatever, that sort of thing. But check. It's a software that's required of the general contractor that provides all the other stuff. The fire alarm system that we approved, we scheduled a September start for that. Guess there's not really a big update other than start seeing people working in September on that. Then public health, the public health mode. So I received the proposal based on what the scope of work was that Department of Health set forth when we submitted the application. The scope included the ADA toilet rooms, in the front, corridor partitions, room partitions, renovations to the existing bathrooms. Bring it up to code for the Department of Health for this kind of thing. You have to have a sprinkler system. The lighting needs to be done. In a lot of it's HVAC. The HVAC is a big part of this. On top of that, it's the hazardous material survey. We just have to get rid of any asbestos that's left in the building. A lot of it's already gone, but there is still a pile of different things in there that we'll have to get rid of and abate first. So they gave me proposal, it's about 100,000 for the engineering of the project. So when I see this, I'm not saying that it's wrong or anything else. The first thing I say is I need to get more, just because they were still on the term contract and they've been involved in the project right up. And I still have confidence that they can do the work good, but responsibly, I'm getting another proposal to compare. So I met with Avella on Friday. We went over the scope of work. And they should, within the next month, have a proposal to me to compare, apples to apples. And I'll try to make a recommendation at that point, but right now I don't have one until I get that. So any questions on that?
So,
That's just more of an update, yeah.
my question could be, so a lot of this stuff that they're recommending should probably be done with the other tenants that are in there anyways, correct?
Yeah, so that end of the building had been kind of remodeled already, where Board of Elections and code. You kind of, if you draw a wall, in that hallway back north in the north wing, that had not been remodeled, that part of it. So a lot of this job, other than like ceiling tile, and lighting will affect them. The rest of it would be from them.
What about the sprinkler system? Does that extend over?
That would also, sprinkler would be one of those things that would extend down the hallway. I don't expect a huge disservice to the people working there, and we would have to schedule around, elections, or whether the construction started right after, the elections. I would work with them to try to figure that out. because there will be construction in the building. When we did the roof, they were over there and we just scheduled, same thing, we had to do a hazmat abatement, you know, for everything, and we just scheduled them and, you know, it usually takes a few days. Boom, boom, and they worked from home those 3 days and it was done.
So the new bathroom facilities and all that, that'd be open to everybody in the building, not
Yes.
just public health.
So when you walk in their front entrance where the glass is, there's gonna be two similar bathrooms to like what you would have here, where they're gang bathrooms that, you know, would serve the whole building. There is other bathrooms down the hall that they're gonna just remodel to use, so public health would have one, you know, down there, but the public and whoever else would want, you know, use the one in the center of the building.
This stuff is mandated by the state, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Some of this is, hey, if I'm in there, we're gonna do lighting, right? Like, I mean, it makes no sense not to put in, when you're doing a project like this, to do LED lights, you know. And same thing with some of the HVAC, they're already mandating us for the, you know, the air, to bring in fresh air. I mean, we could put fans in the cubic feet, but
Yeah.
we should,
So is there state money for this or not?
no. And I talked to Tina about that, so,
So Al, I mean, 100,000 for engineering, we're looking at $1 million project.
yes. I mean, that's my thought, the same as what you just said. If they're telling me it's 100,000, then it's probably $1 million worth of renovations building.
Sure, you'd like to see it broken down.
Years ago, after we bought that building, there was discussion, and I don't remember the outcome of it, on the backup generator.
Yep.
And the electrical entrance. Was the generator upgraded?
We bought the generator from BOCES.
Uh-huh.
So that generator was well oversized for the load that was there. The plan is still to use that generator. We will have to get a new service in there, I think.
There was talk of that too.
Yep, a new service, but the generator is still capable of handling that.
And how old was that generator?
That generator at the time was 7 or 8 years old.
Okay, so it's not that old yet.
Nope, and it's still being maintained every year. There's no real issues with it. It works when it's supposed to.
Good.
I do remember that. I mean, we got a pretty
When
good
you're
year.
younger, you should remember.
Yeah.
So more information to come on that.
More information to come, and basically it's another proposal. And I'm just so you know, like I met with Bobella, because they are on our term contract now. And I do feel like they have a bigger staff, so when, you know, it comes down and maybe it's close, they work pretty quick. You know, they have a big staff and different departments, so they have people that specialize in things that you can just get a hold of. It's been good working with them so far on the times. That's what I have for today.
Any questions for Matt? Thank you for all the good news.
Come on, they're close. They'll all be done with me.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Ready?
Ready. Thank you. Okay, so I just have one request in, the Grassland Bird Trust, which from what I understand, we've worked with them in the past. They want maps from our department for about 6 maps. So basically, they're a local not-for-profit organization working to conserve critical habitat for endangered, threatened, and rapidly declining grassland birds. So they're undertaking a strategic mapping analysis of Washington County, which is a 102,000 acre area that's been identified by the DEC as only one of 8 grassland bird conservation centers in the state. I swear I practiced this. So basically it goes from Greenwich on its southern border to the southern peaks of the Adirondack Mountains. And basically the core, geographic area is about 13,000 acres, which is in Fort Edward, Argyle, and Kingsbury. So basically they want maps of those towns from us so they can study and preserve the area for the wildlife.
So it's roughly about $600 is usually what we would charge for this type of thing. But I feel that we should, waive that fee just because it directly affects Washington County as a whole. So I'm asking if you guys, don't mind.
I just have a question. So I'm not familiar with this group, the Grassland Bird Trust. But do they do the analysis for the solar companies, do you know? Are they getting paid by solar companies to do these fees? 14, there's groups out there now that are actually doing bird surveys.
So from what I understand, they only work with the landowners, DEC, and the USDA NRCS.
Laura, do you have?
At least that's all that they disclosed to me.
Yeah, so they, the solar farm by Boralex that's going in Fort Edward is contained within the Grassland Bird Trust. So Boralex has been working directly with the Bird Trust to help mitigate the impact to the wildlife with the advent of that infrastructure. But the Bird Trust as a whole, although that is the Fort Edward is the primary grassland area, there are other areas in the county. I would suspect from what Miranda's requesting that
There's a map also outside of our office too that shows Washington County with.
they're basically trying to do more identification across the broader area that because they don't own the land, it's designated bird trust, though they're actually a small parcel they own. But it's not a collaboration with the solar companies that I'm aware of. It's simply that they're trying to get a better handle on mapping the areas that they're trying to.
Well, I know in Fort Ann that they're out there doing, and I didn't know if it was this organization or not, okay, first of all, but it would bother me to think that the landowners are paying the organization, the not-for-profit, to do that. And then we're going to subsidize that with taxpayers' money to have the maps done at no expense when they're already being paid for that service.
I'm not aware that there's any reason the landowners would be paying to have that done unless as part of the collaboration with Boralex, like that area may have some partnerships. I'm not really sure about that, but in Fort Ann.
Well, I know it's not Fort Ann, but because, they're not doing it there because she listed Fort Village or the towns and it wasn't Fort Ann.
Fort Edward, Argyle, and Kingsbury,
Right.
from what I understand. At least is what they told me.
John, do you?
Okay, and out of this property you want maps for, how much of it's state land?
I would have to pull that information.
And another reason why I'm at Adamsville Flats, and those places, state land owned. The towns and the county gets taxed from the state land because it's listed as birding property. From Whitehall, the Nature Conservancy is thinking about selling to the state. And I'm trying to get that because the Nature Conservancy have buses coming up there to do birds and all this. I wanted to get that into this taxable property because of the birds. And that's gotta go through Assembly and Senate. And I've been working on it for 5 years and they haven't switched it yet. And chances are slim, but if this is state land, can the state do the same thing?
Well, the organization that, at least I'm trying to work with is just a not for profit. I don't think that they have any direct affiliation with the state except for the DEC that they're working with. So it doesn't really sound like they get any funding from the state that could help them. But this is just, just basically just waiving, what I'm asking is just waiving the fee of $600 for them to be able to, help Washington County.
Is this all internal work on computers and printers in your office, or do you have to do field work?
For this,
Yes.
oh, we have the maps, we just have to print them, but the printing fee is.
So
we
this is
just
the
want-
standard printing fee that the county has adopted.
Mhm.
That's a lot of maps, $600.
Is there a motion?
To do the entire
Make a
county is
motion.
about $1,200.
Nolan makes the motion, Elaine makes a second. Any more discussion on this?
Can we, point of clarity, in this motion, I would support it if it was somehow worded that they aren't generating revenue off from our charity. I mean, I feel a little bit like what Sam is trying to explain, that if they're making money by having these maps, either through solar companies or wherever, then I think we should charge. If it's something that's gonna benefit the wildlife conservatory, then, I don't have a problem.
So how would you define that, Dan? Because if they take these maps and they do up a whole big layout and then they go to the state to get a grant, is that making money off from it or not?
Well, I'm thinking that if the solar farm had to have these maps to get their approvals, and we're giving them to the conservatory so that they are saving that money, that's the part that I'm missing.
Do you
But-
think that's happening, Laura?
Yes, my first comment is they're a nonprofit dedicated to bringing tourism into the area, to conserving wildlife. So when you say make revenue, they're not a profit generating company. I don't believe that's the case, but even if they were generating revenue, it would be supporting the mission of a nonprofit, not supporting the mission of something like a Boralex or a.
Point taken, I can live with that.
But the end result of that is that a company, solar company, for example, could profit from that if they don't have to pay the fee for it. And they're getting it at a reduced, if they're doing it and not being charged by the not-for-profit, then they're gonna be winning on it because we're giving them the $600 waiver fee.
But like Jay said, there's no one we could track it, so I think we got.
Well, there's a way you can track it. It's not-for-profits have to list where their money comes from as well.
Yeah,
Okay, and a lot of them say not-for-profits, at the end of the year, they turn a profit. I'm not. I just don't wanna see this thing get blown out of proportion as every solar project that comes along, if they go to this trust that has a specialty to do the things, and then we end up waiving every time the marina comes in, because another solar project is going in, and it's gonna.
But this is not directly with solar at all from what
This project's a lot bigger, right? than just
Yeah,
like-
this is more than just, and I mean, you said that they're working with one of the solar companies, right?
The Boralex project in Port Edward, but also keep in mind, Boralex through their, and other large-scale solar projects, through their process with the state, in order to get permitted, have to go through an entirely different process with parcels, et cetera. So what they would ask for from a parcel review is different than what the Berlin, it's still parcel data, but what they're gonna need is not an entire regional map. It's gonna be specific parcel data related to the parcels that they might be leasing.
This is more of a broader thing, and I don't really wanna connect the two.
Right.
Into the.
So I guess my last question would be, Laura, would be, so then the map that they're gonna get for this project,
Right.
solar project, is just gonna be, it's gonna be everybody, it's not gonna be just their area?
It's gonna be, from what I understand the request is, it's all of the area that is designated bird
Okay.
trust area.
Okay.
It's not every parcel in the county, it's within the boundary.
Right.
Of the bird trust.
Okay, but they're gonna be getting, for the bird trust, they would be getting the information on that map
Correct,
for what the solar project would be.
no.
For
No.
13,000 acres. right?
There might be a solar project contained somewhere within that map, but it wouldn't be identified on the parcel data.
Okay.
All they're gonna get is parcel data.
Okay.
And it's not, my wife has connections with this organization. They're not inviting solar companies to come in.
They don't, yeah,
But
They don't really want that.
they want.
no, but they will be doing, could be doing studies, that was all.
As I understand it, they're trying to define areas, protect the wildlife from the solar.
That's how I see it too.
Layout area,
Right.
because I haven't followed it for a while, but as I understand it, the solar company has agreed to stay away from those protected wildlife areas.
And the more that they can establish, and I'm hoping that us giving the maps will help them, move forward with what they're doing with the endangered animals, then really helping solar.
Maybe the state will make them stay away once they define it.
More clarity.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You have anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
Sorry to torture you like that.
No, you're good. No, I don't mind the question.
Anything else come before the committee?
Seeing as one of the straight positions.
It's all yours, Sue.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. We're going to open up the Agricultural Planning, Tourism and Community Development Committee for Tuesday, May 21st. So, do we have a motion to accept the minutes of April 23rd? Move. Okay. Cassie moves. And seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we have Lori here to go through some grant updates.
You're gonna be really shocked when I say that the first thing to talk about is broadband.
No.
Does it shock you?
Who would have thought it? Who would have thought?
There goes the new-
Yeah. So unfortunately, I actually have some fairly distressing news to report from my standpoint. The broadband partnership application that we were looking to submit last Friday did not go in. It did not go in because there were too many barriers to cross. The long and the short of it is, we had identified about 2,100 unserved addresses in the county. The list that Connect All gave me to reconcile, and the mandate was we had to be able to show that we had a way to serve at least the majority of the addresses that they identified. They sent me a list of 1,460 addresses. So I believe that we have approximately 800 more unserved addresses than they accounted for. There were also data problems, which I won't get into, trying to get the data to reconcile. But further investigation essentially indicated that sometime within the past few months, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Hudson Valley Wireless have claimed to be able to serve hundreds of addresses that were not on their list a few months ago. So whether that's real, whether it was an error, whether they upgraded equipment is unclear, but I could not get it reconciled by Friday and by the deadline. So because we had set aside, or tentatively set aside approximately 3.5 million, in county funding to use as match for that, I'm going at this point to recommend that that money goes into county general fund. And if at some point in the next few months, there is another proposed solution from Connect All that maybe assists us in a slightly better way that the upcoming BEAD funding will, then the county can talk about whether we want to contribute from the general fund or not. But I do not want to risk losing this ARPA funding.
There you
We
go, Al,
won't.
there's the public health funding.
I already said that to Melissa, so, thank you, sir.
I was gonna try and sweep some of it, see if it could go into like capital plan.
So it's, all the ARPA money is in the capital project. So it can be reallocated
Right.
accordingly.
Sure.
Let it get lost.
I'm moving.
Okay, so Sam, you're moving 3.5 million to
General fund.
general fund. Okay.
No.
We don't, please don't move any.
Yeah, that's what.
Just, yeah, we don't,
Leave it alone until you have a plan for the money, please.
Okay,
Okay.
so you don't want to move it?
Well, so it should ultimately end up in general fund, but I believe, like, I don't know if we need to or wherever you want to put it, that we need to
It's safe,
reconvene,
okay.
presumably the ARPA committee, make a determination as to what specific projects, and then either general fund on, however Al wants to do it, but basically, I give.
I apologize, I thought that had already been discussed,
Yeah.
that's where you're
Yeah,
gonna go.
I didn't find out till Friday, so we didn't have time to convene the ARPA committee, so I'm simply telling you, I cave.
So we have some deadlines coming up, but I would respectfully request the chairman to reconvene the ARPA committee and at his earliest convenience, so we can get a plan together.
I withdraw my motion.
Sorry, I should have phrased that better.
That's okay.
Get a bad weekend,
I had a very good, yes.
turn it off on Friday.
Yeah. So, next thing, on a more positive note, it's our favorite CFA season. CFAs are now out. Without going into the gory detail of what all is in there, most of it is pretty standard, same old stuff. What I am gonna give you is what's new this year. There is now a capital improvements fund for pro-housing communities. Remember that I told you at last month's meeting that with a declaration by a community of becoming a pro-housing community, that there would be funding available. Moreover, in many cases, some of the CFA funding, it's not necessarily directed at housing, will require that a community be certified as a pro-housing community. But in this case, this particular grant is a 50-50 grant offering between 100,000 to 3 million, basically to upgrade infrastructure and for blight removal. And it can be used for acquisition, demolition, or construction, interestingly enough, of anything but housing, but you have to be a pro-housing community to get to it. So that's a new one.
so it's like getting rid of old businesses,
Yes. Yes.
so the village can't use it. Get rid of the housing in the village.
Yes, yes,
What housing in the village?
Well, no, I meant like, is it to get rid of like major buildings or just any kind of structure that needs to be gotten rid of with the
Any kind of structure. So there's another fund that is applicable for demolition. This particular one, basically wants, it will allow acquisition, but it's for demolition, but it wants reconstruction. There's another fund that I'm gonna talk about in a minute that's demolition only. But this one, again, it's capital improvements for infrastructure. You can remove blight and then rebuild on the site of whatever you removed. So like if you were gonna take down a house and then rebuild a business, that would be acceptable, but you couldn't rebuild this housing. So I'll give you more details, but this is just a general, this is a new program.
So Laura, is that something you could take down Shusha Bentwood as a county?
Possibly, but there's a better fund for that.
Oh, okay.
So what's the criteria for a pro-housing community?
So,
You become certified?
yeah, so I passed these out at the last month's meetings, but basically, there are a couple, I think Greenwich has applied, there are 2 or 3 communities that have already applied.
We were,
And, right, so my concern over the whole pro housing thing is that, the implication is that zoning is a barrier across New York State to developing housing. That is not a problem here because most of our communities do not have zoning. So I asked some very pointed questions, like how do you become a pro-housing community to talk about your zoning when you don't have zoning? So what is required for those communities who don't have zoning is basically a resolution that says they're committed to pro-housing principles. You have to submit documentation on your zoning code, or if you don't have a zoning code, you need to have an explanation as to why you don't have a zoning code. And then basically there's some documents that you have to submit that has to do with how many building permits have been issued in the community, et cetera. So what you have to have for most of these funding sources is a request to become certified has to be submitted before July 31st, which is when the CFA deadline is. So you don't actually have to have the certification in place, but you have to have the applications in and the necessary documents to become certified. Right, so I can leave that for you if you'd like.
thank you. That's always a good-
Dan?
Yeah, Laura, how does this work? Who owns the structure that you're applying for grant to demolish?
Well, that depends on the grant program, but in the case of every grant program, at the very least, you will be required to have site control. Which means that if as a municipality, you are applying to demolish a building that the municipality doesn't own, then you have to have permission from the owner or some other process that says you have the legal ability to do work on that site.
And after you demolish it and you construct a new building, who owns that? The same person or, and this is all in the private sector, I'm assuming.
You could have a public-private partnership in that you can have a municipal applicant who applies on behalf of a private entity who wants to reconstruct something. So you, the municipality, apply for the funds to demolish and maybe assist the owner to build something, but the municipality would not own something that was built on somebody else's site, right? I mean, you'd be applying to help them to get something built, but.
Okay, and so can a municipality own the property?
Again, that's gonna depend on the grant funding and that's gonna depend on what it's used for. So for example, there's very little funding that will build the buildings, in fact, there's almost none that I'm aware of, that are used for the purposes of government. So if you were trying to build a new municipal building, there's funding sources for that are not typically gonna be seen through competitive state funding processes.
Well, your next one, you're gonna talk about just strictly demolition. Can that be municipal owned buildings?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait and ask my questions there.
And who's responsible for the 50/50?
So in this case, again, this is an ESD grant, capital improvements for pro-housing. If it's a partnership between a municipal, so it could be just a municipality applying to build something, like it could be a public recreation facility or something, or what's more likely is that you're partnering with a developer to build something. In that case, the municipality would probably be best served by requiring the developer to come up with the other 50%.
Well, the town and the village of Greenwich got data together, applied for this, and we've been accepted.
For the pro-housing
They're
community?
now pro-housing communities. And we do have zoning, so we had started that. And I would urge every town, and if you want information, I'd share with you, to go for this, and I'll tell you why. She's mentioning one grant. I was at the 4-hour DRI program for occupations.
Yes.
You wanna apply for that? You gotta be for a while.
I think I mentioned this at the last
You
one's
really,
meeting.
you really,
Yeah.
you would, you can apply for grants for almost anything they're probably gonna say. You gotta be prompt.
They're gonna move more and more forward. There are several grants like New York Main Street. Right now, this year now requires a DRI, New York Forward will require it. I would be willing to bet that next year more programs will require it. There are several Empire State Development programs that require it now, so. It's something to be thinking about, again, for communities that don't have zoning. It isn't really a heavy lift because as near as I can tell, there aren't a whole lot of requirements that come with it. When you have zoning, there might be a little bit more, you know, like best practices back and forth that they might want to work with you on. But without the certification, communities are gonna find more and more would be limited to funding that you're eligible for.
Any
So
other questions on that? Potentially, could you send this PDF of this again, please?
yes, I will do that. There's an entire link to the program. I'll send you all the link to the program.
Okay, that would be helpful, thank you.
Okay, so the next one on my list, and this is also in the CFAs, is a small manufacturer modernization program. So if you are a manufacturer with less than 99 employees, you're eligible for $50,000 to $250,000, and ESD will pay up to 20% of the project costs. The caveat on that is the manufacturer has to agree to maintain their current employee base for 2 years. So for example, if you're a manufacturer, you need a new piece of machinery. Typically, because of a lot of federal regulations that go along with this, you'd be better off doing machinery and equipment than any kind of capital improvements. But again, just put it out there, there is, manufacturing is one of the industries that New York State wants to support. So this is a way for the smaller manufacturers in the state to get some assistance, for what they might need to grow and maintain. So the other one that is also, it's not in the CFA, but it goes through the same CFA portal and is due at the same time. But CDBG programs were kind of pulled out of the rating and ranking by regional councils, and they're rated and ranked separately. That's really the only difference between those programs that aren't technically in the CFA. So CDBG now has a vacant property clearance program. So this is for demolition only of vacant, abandoned, blighted structures. It will allow up to $1 million in funding. CDBG, as many of you know, one of the requirements is that it has to meet a federal national objective, which basically this is where we get low-income individuals, low-income jobs, et cetera. But there is a national objective called slum blight or slum spot. What that means is that if you've got an area in a community, and this is typically in bigger cities, where you have bigger areas and neighborhoods that have kind of evolved into slums, that would be called the generalized area that's a slum blight. But you can also have what's known as a slum spot, which is an individual or a small group of buildings. So this is the program that I would say would be a better fit for Shushan Bentwood, but as Al will tell you, there will be an issue there with the ownership and the auction process and all of that. But again, this is a new program. I don't know whether Office of Community Renewal will continue this past this year, but this is basically meant, it's kind of like Restore New York without rebuilding it. It's meant to get abandoned, dangerous buildings down. Right? And you can apply for up to $1 million. But other than that, it's a CDBG application, just like any of the other infrastructure CDB applications that many of the communities have. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, how about the cleanup if it's contaminated? Does that cover the cost?
Well, so you can only get up to 1 million, so typically in cases like that, you might wanna consider like partnering with EPA or some other. You can also do brownfield grants, et cetera, but if, I believe, so long as the hazardous, materials could be cleaned up within the funding allowed, that would be eligible. I don't
Well,
see anything in here that
This
says it
is,
would be.
maybe Al could answer this. Don't we have several pieces of property off the tax rolls because they're contaminated?
Yes, sir.
Is this something we could apply a grant for? And if we get approved, then take control of them and clean them up and get them back on the tax roll? Is that a possibility?
Known or speculative environmental contamination is one of the things that makes the building eligible.
Because I know right at the foot of Hill Fort Edward, there's one that's been sitting there for years. And I'm sure there's other ones all around you might be more aware of. I think up in Wayne Hall there were some.
So we have been able to solve a couple of them successfully. So the two that stick in my craw the most, you mentioned one of them.
I drive by it every time I come up.
And the other one is across from the Susan B. Anthony House. Those two properties, if there's a way, both of those, since I've been in this chair in 2012, have been stuck in my craw like you wouldn't believe. They're the one in Port Edward is operating business on.
Oh, I know it.
You know, and the one across from Susan B. Anthony, that property could be something, right? I mean, so we've had some successful results. You know, one of my, favorite success stories is Market 32.
Mhm.
That was a partnership that Mitch and I sat down one day. Thankfully it came together. Though I think there may be some opportunities.
What do you think? There's some opportunities for those two parcels that we ought to explore? That's where I'm coming from. What do you think, Laura?
So I think, like, if Al has a list of buildings that we might wanna think about, that, yes, we're gonna have to meet the criteria that Office of Community Renewal requires, right? And one of the things that we're gonna, if it's dangerous, contaminated, or a health hazard, that's an eligibility thing on its own. But the other thing that I think when you're talking about slum and disinvestment is what are the opportunities that parcel can be? This funding will not rebuild anything, but if you're partnering for a site to become economically viable for a community, I would think that would help your chances of getting funded. But again, would have to meet the slum blight or slum spot criteria.
So what would the next steps be in this committee?
The applications are due in July, so if the county is going to apply, then I have to have committee permission to apply and figure out how to get the grant written. But first, we would need to know what we were applying for. So if the committee wants to suggest that Al and I talk about potential candidates?
And my only concern in this round, Mr. Shaw, is like, I think that there's a lot of conversations that can happen for 2025. I am concerned about site control in a 2024 application.
Yes, we would have to have site control of it, yes.
So I think for 2025, there is absolutely some conversation.
When would you start that process?
Now,
For 2025?
I would sit with Laura now and put that timeline together now.
Well, I don't know, what's the committee think? Is this just an idea that, it would benefit us if we were eligible? And
I'm happy to explore with Laura to report back to the committee.
Go ahead, Jay, I'm sorry.
Right, for the site control on your project, Sue, that would be great though for them, but on the one across from Susan B. Anthony, that's been the chicken or the egg. We don't want to take control of it unless we know we've got a grant coming through on that, because that's not a good one to have if we don't get a grant.
So what could happen on that, Supervisor, is a path forward would be putting it on the roll, letting it go delinquent 2 years again, getting summary judgment, but holding off on filing the deed until such time as you secure the money to. So there is a path to success there. It's gonna be 3 years out, but when, like I said, I've been 20 years into this already, so another 3 is not gonna break my heart.
And you look at, I mean, you're talking about the property from the Susan B. Anthony
I'm
house.
talking about the old mill down
The old
there.
Old mill,
Right.
that you met with.
No,
Right,
No.
and that one is there
Which
cleanup
mill?
still involved
The
in
one
that?
across from Susan Dan, beyond the 29th. And this very clearly says, effective site control must be established prior to submission of the full application.
I mean, you look at and think about what that could be, you know, you've got the conflict with the bridge right now, you've got the mill, you've got the Susan B. Anthony house, you got a tavern house. Potentially,
Maybe we have to tear the mill down there and put in the bridge.
Maybe you end up with the eminent domain.
Need it for
one time where it
staging.
Really works.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Then all fits done.
it could work, potentially could. work.
Well, and the same thing in Fort Edward. I mean, that one could work too.
And it's in the same way with the Shusha Pathway, you know, looking at it and thinking about it for kayak access, we would say fishing access in the park, and having it be something that gives back to the community and gives back to the county in a way that it is productive rather than a health hazard. Right now, I think the trainer, I think the New York State Fire is using the building as a training facility, pretty much, and maybe it'll.
You had the question.
Thanks, Sam, he did.
She should
I
never.
think this partially asked, but we have,
Go ahead.
well, we have properties we wasn't very needed because we didn't want to take them on roll for a lot of these reasons. So are we playing with fire? We take control of those to go through the process? You get in the chain of title?
Well, like I said, I wouldn't file the deed of ownership until such time we secure the grant.
But don't you have to have title to apply for the grant? Isn't that what you said?
Site control.
Site control, right.
So the Shusha Bedwood is owned by the county. You gotta go through the auctions, right? And so this would be number one this year, right? You get but it's already county owned. Can you look it up? The deeds are. in the county.
So they have updated the real property tax law to reflect this year's changes. So we actually know the process now. It's not just a gut feeling, we actually know the process.
My question is, so how long, what do you expect the life expectancy to be on this grant? I know we're talking doing something 3-4 years down the road.
We don't know. This is the first, this is a brand new grant. I can talk to OCR and see if they have a sense that this is going to be continued or whether this is kind of a one-time thing. What I would suggest to the committee, any CDBG grant, whether we do this or whether the sewer district is gonna put in a CDBG grant, requires a public hearing. So it would not hurt if we scheduled a public hearing, because we can't submit any kind of an application without having had one. So I'd suggest we just schedule one, and then if we end up not submitting, we're fine, but we can't submit without having had that hearing.
This year or next year, if you're,
Every year,
do it every.
we can make it our practice so that we leave ourselves open.
Correct. I would not be able to do it. Yeah.
So do you need something from us to say you have the public hearing? Yeah. You have the resolution. Set the date. You have a second?
I got it.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. So
Okay.
with that, you come back, what, next month with, identifying different sites, or what is it, where do we go from here for this?
Yeah, I'm happy to meet with Laura and come back with some plans and options, sure.
Not that. Laura, is that something you can?
Yeah.
Good.
We can do that.
I just have one more follow-up question. So we need to make this a permanent annual thing. You said, where do we take that resolution from, what committee barrel? To get that,
So I would just ask this committee to remember that I think it's a general rule, second quarter of every year, get yourself in line to accept PVD funding, but it's, leave the door open at least, so that if something comes available, there's no harm in passing it.
No, so it'd be this tuition.
Sure, sure.
Okay, one more grant to mention, I mentioned it briefly last time, the Regional Food Systems Agriculture Fund is now out. It is due June 28th. There are 2 tracks that are to be taken, and I thought I had actually printed the, more on it, but I can send you information. There is an infrastructure grant, this is targeted at dairy, produce, fruit trees. What it's not targeting is meat producers. It will allow between 100,000 to 3 million for infrastructure improvements. There's also a second grant. That one isn't, I think it's coming out shortly after this one, but the infrastructure one is out now. That will allow between 10,000 to 300,000 for equipment only. The grant is a 50-50 grant, which means that the applicant has to put up a 50% match. So I can get anyone links to this, but it is now available and due June 28th. The CFAs are due July 31st.
I saw an email this last week, I think. And I'm not sure where it come from or how I got it, but it was to do with some type of manufacturing or processing plant for chestnuts. What is, do you know what that is?
Yes. Braintree Farms in Salem received a grant from USDA, so that was a federal grant, to build a processing facility on their farm in Salem that will be processing initially chestnuts grown on their property, but as plantings of chestnut trees increase, they want to be able to produce for other farms as well, or process, excuse me, for other farms as well.
Now, are these chestnuts American chestnut or are they a variant that are blight resistant?
They're blight resistant.
So they're not American chestnut, they're something else, or are they been modified? They're American chestnuts that are modified.
I'm not a chestnut expert, but I don't think you can.
Well, I
grow
find it
chestnuts
fascinating.
I think they're American chestnut
that have been modified, yeah.
Are blight resistant.
And Dan, their trees are in Granville, they're in, outside of East Greenwich. Any areas that you see that have
Well, I,
White sticks.
29 I saw, it looked like.
yeah, Johnsonville, I think there's
Now, how do they harvest chestnuts?
they are buying machines to get ready to do that. And they're, actually, we went up, Chuck Barton from WWIDA went up and met with them 2 weeks ago. And so we actually heard what their plans are with it's almost a $2 million grant. And what they're doing is they're planting trees, they're getting their harvest large enough to be able to put in the processing plant and be able to eat it. And so their plan is pretty solid. It's like a 10-year plan.
Oh, yeah, growing trees could be.
It's gonna take a
Plant.
In 7 years, they can start harvesting in 7 years, and they've had some of them in for 3 years. So I know there's some leaves off the top, and that's about what they're excited about what they're doing. They have weekends there that could have 80 to 100 people. They're helping them plant trees and putting in.
Oh, good.
They had architects and then engineers there last weekend.
Would that grant marry into what they're doing and help them?
Well, they already did get a like I said, Sue said, it's a $2 million grant, but yes, potentially they could apply for that grant as well if they needed more machinery or something else.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, we should know.
It'll help maybe keep some of the water back as it comes towards Salem. You get those trees.
Drink it all up.
So those trees.
So,
Okay, so last thing I have on grants, I want to congratulate the community of Cambridge. As most of you know, they were the first in the county to receive a New York Forward last year. The process of the New York Forward and the DRI grants is that the community gets together a committee that selects a roster of potential projects to be funded through this. all of those projects, once they're vetted and selected by the committee, then go to the state, and then the state picks from amongst the projects that were put forward by the committee. So the Cambridge Public Library, there is going to be a trailhead along the Owl Kill Community Park, and then there's a barn there that will be available for public purpose. The Cambridge Co-op Community Kitchen is getting renovations. Owl Kill Stream is going to be naturalized and park amenities added. And there is a building that many of you may know was subject to arson, burned a few years ago, that is going to get funding to be restored to rental housing.
This is the village of Cambridge.
So I'm sure that there will be several, you know, New York Forward hasn't come out yet for this year. I'm sure there will be applicants. And keep in mind, they have to be pro-housing communities to apply. Okay, so any other questions on grants? Okay, so on tourism, I very briefly introduced all of you to Amy Hoffer last month, who has now been on board for a bit over a month. And one of the first things that we're working on, as you know, we have spent many years building, maybe 5, building the tourism programming. And at the heart of that is the list of businesses that I, in any way, shape, or form, can relate to tourism. So when you go onto our tourism website, businesses basically have their listing, they own their listing, they tell us what they are, they give us photography, and then our content, when we write blogs, when we do posts, when you are trying to find a business that grows peaches or something, it's all based on these listings. It is really, you know, the old, you can lead a horse to water. Well, we basically gave instructions to the horse to go put their listing up there and own it. Many horses wouldn't, they just couldn't take the time to do it. So now what we're doing is for those businesses that we know are out there and we're already promoting in some way, shape, or form, Amy is calling on them with a laptop and saying, we are going to do this. The reasoning is we, from a legal standpoint, do not want to take liability for these businesses writing their listings for them. So I have taken the stand that says we're not going to do it for you. We'll help you to do it and we'll sit in front of you to do it, but we can't write language for you about your business. So it also helps get Amy introduced to the various businesses in the communities, and I think it's been very well received and is going forward. I also want to mention Thursday, the 16th of May was a federal National Agritourism Day. We did a lot of content and articles the week before that to try and help promote agritourism. That's obviously something that I think that we're particularly well suited to promote and want to keep doing more of that. Living History Weekend related to the 250th was this past weekend. There were events in basically at the museum in Fort Edward and at the visitor center, where they had Civil War reenactments, encampments, there were lectures, etc. I think, you know, one of the things, you know, we heard some good comments about it. I think the attendance may not have been quite as high as we would have liked to see. So I think we're going to continue to work with the 250th committee on coming up with good ways to do, you know, better marketing and promotion and you know, making sure that we're holding activities that are going to be of interest to the public, et cetera. Because as we get closer to 2025, you know, that's just going to be of more and more interest. And so then the last thing that I wanted to mention, as we've talked about in some of the year-end discussions with tourism, the thing that is getting us, you know, when we look at when people log on to our social media pages and website, what is it they're looking for? It's quite frequently events. So what we have coming up, Salem Courthouse has an event May 25th, 20 Years of Giving. Port Salem Theater has productions going on. There's a general store grand opening in Greenwich, Butch Market, owned by the same businesses as Gather. Lakota's Farm is doing, I think, the first, if not one of the first Pride events in the county. And Blue Jean Ball at Washington County Fairgrounds, Salem Community Potluck, and the Balloon Festival in Cambridge is coming up in June. We have a festival in Whitehall in June, and then Cambridge Lions Car Show in June. So, you know, these are just some of the kinds of activities that are getting posted as we work more and more with businesses. We want to encourage them to be posting their businesses because that's how we get word out and that's how we get people from neighboring counties and the regional area to come here to Washington County and hopefully spend lots of money. That's it.
Any other questions? Okay. That's it. Okay. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Okay.